So I never thought I would be that person making a video in my car, but I went for a ride to clear my mind. I was outside walking around on my property, but the bugs got really bad. So I went for a ride to kind of clear my mind because I want to say some things in a way that's not hurtful, that maybe encourages some thought and maybe a bit more understanding and compassion towards people moving forward. So a little bit about me. I grew up in a family chock full of addiction and mental illness, and I myself have never been an addict, except for my nicotine and my caffeine that keep me going. But I personally have not struggled with addiction. But as I said, I know and love many people who really struggle. And I've watched people be destroyed, families be destroyed, communities be destroyed. And I have spent the majority of my adult life learning and growing and trying to be able to handle these situations in the correct way. Because addiction and mental illness are very confusing, and it is very hard for those of us who love people who are struggling to know when to step back, when to be helpful, when to draw boundaries and lines in the sand. And it is a struggle. So all that being said, many years ago I was introduced to Matt Brown, and we were introduced in a really weird way. But very quickly we realized we had a lot of things in common. So at that time I was making a lot of jewelry. I was making spoon stem pendants and spoon rings, and from silverware. And I was also collecting and cabbing my own rocks and minerals, and then making them into jewelry. So that was something that we really connected on. And as I got to know Matt, I realized how he saw the world differently. And it was like really inspiring, because he was always so like curious, wanted to learn. And that is what made him incredibly smart. Like, he has talked about how he didn't have much of a formal education, but he wanted to learn things, and he wanted to know all the things. And if he was like curious about something, he would learn everything he could about it. And like that was cool, and with him looking at the world differently, like, he had so many ideas for like jewelry and how to do things and whatnot. And he really helped me out a lot. Like, we would bounce ideas off each other. And I realized that he was kind of a smart ass, which I like in a person, right? I'm a little bit of one myself, so that, that was cool. And that just at his core, he was like a really like good person. He just wanted to like be a part of something, to do a little good in this world, to, make a difference. And so when I was selling my jewelry that like he helped kind of collaborate on, I remember we had a conversation, because I'm like, well, do you want your name attached to this? Because it wasn't just me that did it. Like, this was your idea or whatever. I just, and he did not want that. And he didn't want that for my sake, because at the time, and pretty much forever after that, there was a lot of like drama and whatnot. And there's always been like, groups and pages and people that, have nothing but negative things to say about him, and at the time the show, and his family and stuff like that. So I'm actually, especially now looking back, I'm super thankful that he was like, nope, take the credit, like, because I think it saved me a lot of drama, right? But oh, and too, he helped me design my tattoo. He drew the arrow and I did the writing. And so that's just like another thing. He was really creative, and it was pretty cool. But anyway, like, life happens, and like people do, lives kind of separated us. We each had our own life and kind of did our thing. But Even after all this time, like, I watched his content because I love, the outdoors. I love camping. I love hiking. I love people who just stop and look at a cool plant or a neat rock or whatever, So I continued watching his content. Every once in a while we'd touch base or whatever. But, after all this time, like, one of my teenagers at the time was struggling, and, Matt reached out with so much empathy and compassion and understanding, and was just someone that my kiddo could talk to and, like, lean on and go to kind of for guidance. And it was very helpful for my child. They needed that at that moment. Matt was super helpful. So I appreciated that so much, because, like, he didn't owe me that. He didn't owe my kid that, but he was there because, like I said, at his core, he was just a person who wanted to help people. He didn't want to see people suffering. He didn't want to see people in pain or struggling. He knew what it was like to struggle, and he didn't want to see other people go through it. So in watching his content, I, of course, like so many other people, watched as things started spiraling out of control. And unfortunately, with the knowledge that I've gained from having, so many people that I love, suffer with addiction and mental health issues, I knew this was bad. He was acting and saying things in ways that if he was, sober and mentally healthy, he would have never been saying. It was very clear he was saying things and kind of projecting on other people because he was hurting. I think one of the biggest things for Matt was to just, like, feel accepted and feel important, and be the person he needed to be for the people that he loved. And when he started falling back into old patterns, you could very clearly see that he was super disappointed in himself. He was angry at himself. He was heartbroken. And he was struggling. And when I saw that things were going so badly, so wrong, I did personally reach out 2 times. And, one time we had a conversation, and I, brought up, rehabs and meetings and things in his state and mine. And then a little later on, my husband and I had talked, because my husband was watching along with me, and my husband and I talked, and he's like, reach out to him and let him know that if he ever decides that, like, sobriety and, recovery are his goal, he can come and work on our farm and try to get away from things here. And so that I did do that. And then there were a few other times that, on his YouTube, 2 comments. I'm not gonna lie, I was afraid to comment on stuff because people were getting attacked so badly. And that's something I feel very guilty for. But I did leave 2 positive comments, but they were kind of drowned out in a sea of cruelty and bad things, right? Our help was turned down, as was help from everyone who knew Matt, who cared about Matt. I think so many people stepped up and were like, if you want it, we will help you on your road to recovery, right? But you have to want it, and you have to make the decision. Because let's be real, you can't just kidnap someone. There were a few times my husband was like, go see if you can talk to him. Go see if you can talk him into coming. And it's like, you just wanted to, like, scoop him up and make things better. And you can't do that. You just can't. So in his, comments and in his chats, there was a lot of, people who are just outright cruel. And I'm not even talking about those people, because it's a waste of breath to even, respond to them or interact with them, because when you are just getting your kicks saying hurtful things to someone that you don't know, someone, there's something wrong inside of you. And that's something that I hope people can work on and maybe someday heal from, because hurt people, right? And Matt being in the public eye, he had always dealt with people talking about him. I mean, that's to be expected, right? When you're kind of living your life on camera, you're sharing bits of yourself with a wide audience of people. People are going to talk, right? And, healthy Matt, sober Matt, he would occasionally say things about it, but, he knew he was good, he was doing his best, and he had the confidence to, brush it off and not let it really affect him. And, as things started getting worse, you could tell that more and more, people's comments and stuff were getting to him. And of course he would be like, nope, haters don't bother me, but it was bothering him. And he did make it very clear on many occasions, in many different ways, that it was affecting him mentally. Now, when things started going bad, there were even more groups and more pages and more people talking about him. Right. And as this happened, as he got worse and then the attention got worse, it created this just loop. And you could see it was hurting him. You could see it was affecting him. And a lot of people who were doing these things, who were talking about him, I have to believe in my heart, started with good intentions, right? They were thinking, if we point out to him what he's doing and we show him how far he has fallen, maybe it'll snap him back into reality. Maybe he'll get sober or, go to rehab. And unfortunately, that was not the case. It was doing the opposite. So I've been thinking about how to word this, and it was just yesterday I had the perfect scenario, okay? So my husband and I, we own a little farm, and yesterday was the first hay crop of the season, and it always sucks. Your equipment always goes haywire, everybody's cranky, everybody's hot, you just want to get it done, it's just always sucky. And yesterday was no exception. So our first wagon of hay, my husband's hauling it with the tractor, and something in the axle, or I don't know, not my thing, but broke in the wagon, and he had to unhook, and he's like, crap, I'm gonna have to take the tractor, go behind the wagon, and just kind of push it out of the way for now. We've got to get the other hay wagons in, and then at the end of the day we'll deal with this. So I was like, okay. So he gets behind it with our big tractor, and I knew where we wanted the wagon to go, right? So I thought, well, if he's pushing, I'm going to go in front and I'm going to turn it in the correct direction and it'll help. So my intention was to help. But when I got up there and I start wrenching on this wagon, my husband's like, no, please don't do that. You're gonna break it. You're gonna make it worse, and then it'll be harder to fix. And I'm like, oh shoot, and it felt crappy. It felt crappy to just sit there and watch as this broken wagon's being pushed by my husband, and I'm just standing there doing nothing, right? So my intentions were to help, but unfortunately, my help would have been more damaging. My help wasn't helpful. So I had to step back and go, okay, I didn't like it, didn't want to, but I had to, okay. So I look at Matt's situation a lot like that wagon. Matt was the wagon. He was struggling, he was broken, and people were trying to push him in the right direction, but they were doing so in a way that wasn't helpful. They were doing so in a way that in the end seemed more damaging, or was more damaging. Because again, I say, healthy Matt, sober Matt, had the confidence and the wherewithal to not let people get to him. But Matt, when he was very clearly struggling, he was very mentally unwell, he was in full-blown active addiction, he wasn't taking criticism well. And let's face it, if someone isn't asking you for advice and you're giving them advice, it is always a criticism. And when groups of people are talking about you, it feels crappy. And there were many people in these groups who were, saying, well, I think Matt's in like full-blown psychosis from substances. I wouldn't argue with that. It was bad. But when you're saying these things and you realize that someone is very, very unwell and very much walking a fine line, and one step in the wrong direction would equal disaster, you don't keep picking at them. See, like I said, I have to believe they thought they were helping. They thought they were doing something to encourage him to sober up and to clean up. But it was very obvious that their help was not helping in the way that they had intended. So at that point, when you see, this might be doing more harm than good, if you are a good person, if you truly are trying to help someone, you need to take a step back. You need to reevaluate the way you're going about things. And if you cannot find another way to help that's actually helpful, then you need to step away, because doing more damage is never a good thing. I've seen people, I've looked at a lot of the pages and the groups and the channels and and I truly believe a lot of people do have a really good heart and really were just desperate and didn't know what to do, so they thought maybe pointing things out would do something good. But like I said, it was very clear that it was just making him more paranoid, more upset. And people are like, well, I have a good heart and I know what I meant. But when someone says, you're hurting me, or this is bothering me, okay, and it's making things worse, you have no right to dig your heels in and say, but no, I'm not, I'm helping. I also heard a lot of people, we have the right to talk about public figures and blah, blah, blah. And I get it. Matt was, in the eye of the public more than the average person. But a lot of people who, are well known by others, never really hear the things you say about them because they're out living their best life and they could care less about what people like us say about them. But that wasn't Matt. He did care about the people who followed him. He cared about the people who commented and who were in the chat. And it really hurt him when he felt like he was failing everybody. He was intelligent. He knew he was going down a bad path. Okay? Us constantly nitpicking and pointing out all the inconsistencies, the things that weren't true, the things that were like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, I get that it is very tempting to do so, but when someone is not in a mental state to receive that criticism, you are pushing them further into the danger zone. I think that's something we all just kind of need to chew on for a little bit, because it is really easy to think that you're superior than someone who's struggling mentally, or superior than someone who battles addiction. But we're all just people and we're all just doing our damn best. And I get that. And that is why I'm not coming at this with anger, even though I have a lot of anger in me right now about the way things went down. I just think it's something we all need to keep in the back of our heads, and moving forward in different situations, we need to really reevaluate what we're doing and look at ourselves and be brutally honest. Is this helping or is this hurting? And if I am being told that this is hurting or making things harder or making things worse, is there a way I can try to help differently? And again, if you can't, then sometimes we need to just walk away, step back, stay quiet. There has to be some good in this tragedy, and hopefully that we all just think about things a little harder and be a little kinder. And for those who were close to Matt, the people in Washington, in his little community, and his friend, my heart absolutely breaks for you all. I know so many of you who were like local to him and who were close to him tried so hard, and that did not go unnoticed. Like, I saw it, everybody saw it, and I wish things would have turned out differently. I know we all do, but like, you are beautiful people, and thank you so much for being there for him, even when he couldn't recognize that people were trying to help. So have a good night, everyone.